The entire process of writing is really fun for me. I like the conceptual part of it, where you create the characters and the storyline, all the way up to the revisions, which can be very meticulous at times. But I really enjoy that opportunity to, in a way, recreate the story. I think there are several things that I want people to get from my books. First of all, I'm interested in having people get the spiritual message behind the book, which is very much about trusting in God, even when circumstances look bleak, even when it doesn't make sense to do so. Just trusting that He's there for you, that He has a plan and a purpose for each one of us. And then also I think just a more general message is about love, that it still exists, because I know a lot of times we see the love that's available on, like TV or movies, and it's not necessarily something that's real and true. So I think what I love about this story is that these are two characters who definitely have their faults and their problems, but they're able to work it out with each other and with God to create a loving relationship with each other. I think a book always pulls from certain aspects of your own existence, your own reality. Unlawfully Wedded Bride, though, is very much a work of fiction. I think the most real part of it is the connection that the siblings have, because I have an older brother and an older sister, so I know what it's like to be in a family and to be the youngest in that family, and the way that those different dynamics play out. So that's definitely a very real part of the story. And then also the spiritual parts of the story. They did come from my own life, but I tried to tailor them to each character. So what I went through isn't necessarily what Nathan or Kate goes through in the book, but it came from that starting point of something that happened in my life that I had to learn. I chose the time period mostly because nothing was really happening in that time period in Texas. We finished Reconstruction, so it was just kind of like a nice time to be in Texas. You had small towns springing up all over the place, and that really, I think, was the main reason that I picked that time period. And also, I knew that I wanted to write stories about Kate's younger brother and sister, so I wanted to set it at an early enough time period where, 10 years later, it's still a good time to be in Pepin. And I think what's interesting in the next book that's coming out is that you see Pepin 10 years later. So the railroad station has come to town, and so it's changed the way that people interact with each other, changed the way they travel, and you definitely get to see the town more in the next book coming out. This one's more based on the farm and the farm life and what that was like in 1870s. I'm writing about the heroine's brother, so it's kind of a series going on with the O'Brien family. So I'm really excited about that. The next book comes out July 2012, which is really exciting. It's called The Runaway Bride, so that'll be in stores. So right now I'm actually in the process of revising. I'm also interested in getting an agent, so we'll see how that goes. I'm definitely excited about moving on to another phase of my career. I'm not sure what moment really made me realize that I could be a writer. I think I've always wanted to be a writer in some way, shape, or form. I remember when I was a kid I would make up stories in my head all of the time, and eventually I began to write those down. I think the first time I really understood that this could be a career for me was when I started hearing back from the publishers, positive results saying that they wanted the book, or they wanted to learn more about the book that I wrote. So that was definitely a moment where I became interested in the writing as a career. But just being a writer, I think it's something that I've always wanted to do. I had to gain a lot of confidence. God had to teach me to, first of all, accept my gifts, because I know when I was younger, I was very closed off when it came to sharing my work, sharing my books. I didn't tell very many people about it. And I think that stemmed from the fact that I was sort of afraid of what people would say about it or what they would think about it. God really taught me that it's not about me. It's about what He can do through me. And so I found once I started sharing my story with people, sharing the fact that I was a writer with people, it really became more of a conversation about God and what He could do through me, and not what I can do myself. And it became less about what sort of story I wrote and if it was good or not, and more about, okay, well, what is God doing? So that definitely was a struggle for me. But it's so great to have overcome that, because now I have so much more confidence in myself and my ability, and I'm able to tell people my story and that God can do amazing things through you. I feel like there are often times we always just discount ourselves. like God may have a plan for us, but, I stutter, or I'm too young, I'm this. We have, the prophets always said that there was, something that made them not worthy of that gift. And I think that weakness is what God uses. He looks for those weaknesses because he knows that he can use that as a strength to show his power. Because there is no reason for me to have a book published at 22 except for the fact that God was able to move in my life. I think in those moments where I really wanted to give up or was feeling discouraged about writing and if my book would actually be published, was that I just had this passion within me. It was something that I couldn't necessarily control. Sometimes I would try to stop writing, or I'd decide I was going to take a break from writing, and maybe that night or the next morning I'd suddenly get this idea, I had to write it down. So there's definitely just this passion inside of me to write that's always been there. So those times when I feel discouraged or feel like, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to do, I remember that I do have that passion, and it just, it comes forth, and I really am reminded that I do this because I love it and not because I have to do it or because I have a contract now or anything, but I do it because I love it. I just want to say to anyone else who has a big dream, believe that it can happen, because it does. It happens every day. It happened to me, and I'm not so special that it wouldn't happen to anybody else. God has a plan for you, and that plan is good. So just tap into those gifts that He already has placed inside of you and believe that it can happen, and don't be surprised when something actually does happen, and maybe you have your own book signing party, or you have your own book launch, or you have a book coming out, or even just anything, with singing or any gift that God has given you. Expect it to come true. Expect something to happen for you.